Hearts standard. I'm Craig Cairns, that's Joel Sked, and we've just watched Hearts lose their first game under new head coach Neil Critchley. What were your thoughts on that, Joel?
We were just talking off camera how it was such a hard game to get into. We kind of both knew that it was going to be a bit of a struggle tonight, just because you knew Derek McInnes and Kilmarnock were going to come here and make it very difficult. I mean, I think it was within the first 5 minutes, Derek McInnes did that to his players and basically said, just squeeze.
There was already only 7 yards between them.
Yeah, so there was just no space, and I thought, while Hearts didn't create nearly enough chances for the possession they had in the first half, thought it was comfortable enough. Kelly, there was a few scary moments, and then the goal itself was really good. Again, not quite against, well, maybe against the run and play, because for like 5 minutes Kelly were more on top, but it was a lovely bit of play. You thought, perfect, that's exactly what you want. Before half time, Kelly are going to have to open up a wee bit, and it gives you a bit more space. Second half, still, again, more comfortable, and then just two shit bit of defending essentially to really, really cheap goals. And how many times have we said it this season, giving up cheap goals? And it's there's only so many times you can say that without, it's like, right, why are we giving up so many cheap goals? And then probably the most disappointing, frustrating aspect of the game was the reaction to going behind. Neil Critchley spoke about it afterwards. You just like, there was just a bit of nothing. Hearts never looked like getting back into it. Hearts have done really well recently, and scoring late against Ross County, scoring late against Dino Mins, scoring late against Hibs, but there was just that feeling that was 2-1 since Kelly got ahead. That was it, and yeah, it's frustrating, and the more you think about it, the more you look at the league table and just look at the fixture list coming up, there's frustration and worry.
It shows you what a precarious position Hearts are still in, because despite the positivity, a few minutes away from losing to Hibs and going back to the bottom of the league.
Yep.
Lose tonight and go back to the bottom of the league. But before we kind of talk about the general implication of the results, going back to the first half, certainly a better first half performance than it was a second half performance, but I think even within the positivity there were worrying signs there. Lots of the ball, maybe not creating enough clear cut. There was like a few speculative efforts towards goal. Blair Spittle had a good shot saved, but there was still that vulnerability. Had to clear the ball, not quite off the line, but it was still like a goal-saving challenge from Riles. There was a free header for somebody.
Joe Wright put one over the bar. Someone else had a free header as well. Yeah, there
was a lot of the ball not really putting Kilmarnock under any real sustained pressure, and a vulnerability at the back, which I think even in the games that we've come away positive results since Critchley's taken over, there's still been that sort of. There's been moments in the games where it's like, oh, they've looked a wee bit vulnerable here. If they concede here, like the St Mirren game.
Yes, that was good.
If they concede a goal at 2-0, who knows how that one goes?
Yeah.
There was a little period in that game there. So I think it is. You asked if it was a reality check. He didn't want to be drawn into saying yes, it is. But I think, without like wanting to argue with him, I think it clearly is, because we've gone back to the bottom of the league again, and it's like, yeah, all this positivity is kind of built up, but they're still in a very sort of precarious position.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. It was a reminder that there's a reason that Neil Critchley came in and the new head coach, and there's a reason that after a good week of results, that one poor result has put Hearts back on the bottom of the table. There's a reason for that, and it's because the team collectively, individually, mostly individually, there's been some positives in the squad, but I've just not been good enough, and that's been creating chances, that's been taking chances, that's been defending, that's been doing the basics, that's been being brave on the ball. All these things need to improve, and you kind of get wrapped up into it, and you go from game to game or moment to moment, and you think, right, okay, you're almost like, everything's fine now. We've to beat St Mirren, I beat Omonia, rescued it late against Hibs. Everything's fine now, and it is just
now we're all going to die again.
Yeah, and then it's back to, it's like, okay, we're going to get relegated now. So it's trying to find that middle balance, but it's definitely that it's definitely a reminder that this team are where they are for a reason. There's quality there. We've seen it in glimpses that, if you can put together, can motor up the table. But that, we've been talking about that for ages. You need to put the results together.
String of results, yeah.
You thought this game and the St Johnstone, if you looked at the St Mirren, adding the St Mirren Hibs, 10 points from those 4 games, perfect. Now you're mostly getting 7 ahead of playing Celtic, Rangers and Aberdeen. So
and
yeah,
you take away the European games and there's just very few wins for Hearts this season, and that's the main thing we're talking about. Exactly, that's the main thing we're talking about here, is to get off the bottom of the league, is to win games. Very good goal that Hearts scored, has to be said. They were, as we said, we're finding them struggling to break down Kilmarnock's sort of 2 banks of 4. Quick throw, they got in behind them, took the goal. Alan Forrest, maybe not a great overall performance, but it's tough to say that about any Hearts players tonight. But he's certainly making the most of his chances in front of goal in the last few. He's had 2. Yeah, I think it's started the last 2 matches. The last 2 matches he has started and he has scored.
Yeah. On terms of the positives and individual performances overall, I thought Blair Spittle was good for the majority of his time on the pitch. I wrote about him. I think he was really impressive in glimpses. James Penrice was solid again. Really, really impressed with him. But I think they were the only 2 positives. With Forrest, we talked about it after the St Mirren game, is that you want him to be more productive, and that's scoring goals and assisting. He's done that. He's come in scoring goals, which is good. He's still within performances. You always know what you're going to get from him, but at times inconsistent as well. But he was by far not the poorest performer in a Hearts jersey, that's for sure. And it was a lovely finish, lovely build up, lovely finish.
And then we have to cover it, but the goals, I mean, it's, and I say this devoid of being a Hearts supporter, but they're the kind of goals that make you feel angry, just like angry, like watching that, even as a neutral. It's like I'm angry at that defending. It's something about
a ball bouncing around. Well, it's near your box, in your box, and then the opposition team score from it. I've only watched the first goal back once, maybe twice.
I'm not sure what Kent's trying to do. He gets a head on it. I don't know if he's thought like he's caught between back to the keeper and get it away, or whether I didn't see it enough times to determine what he's trying to actually do.
There was a bit of head tennis in the middle of the park, and then it's gone towards him, and I do think he's kind of got himself caught under the ball, but that's because he's maybe indecisive in his decision making. He recovers.
He's got an absolute monster following him as well.
Exactly, Kyle Vassell, who I'm going to come on to talk about, but Kent then does well to recover and makes a great block, and then Kennedy, I would need to see it again. I don't know if he means to catch it that well and put it in the top corner, or if it's kind of came off the side of the boot and kind of spun that way. But yeah, it looks a great finish, and then the
second one is real bad because it's one of you just see it coming a mile off, and it bounces and nobody gets in the way of it.
Joe Wright is able to do a back heel.
It's just one of those sort of desperate moments where you're watching, you just see it coming a mile off, and you can't do anything about it.
And there Vassell again. I don't think I just think the way it's not as if he pins Kai Rolls. I just think the way everything fell, that Kai Rolls was maybe a step off him. Again, I'll need to see it back a couple of times.
He's Rolls off as well. It's not easy to get around that.
No, it's not, and that's the big thing. Is I think fans of all teams will look at Kyle Vassell and think, he's just a big lump. I would love to have that big lump of Hearts, and that's something that I wrote about it. That's Laurie Shankland. Yes, I don't think he's been over the piece. Don't think he's been playing well. He's been contributing in the last few games.
You could have said that up until the weekend there, maybe. I mean, you could say, he's not scoring, but he's getting involved in the goals. I think there was a stretch where he scored and then he was involved in the next 2 or 3 goals or something like that. But yeah, it's off the boil again a wee bit.
Yeah, and I just feel there's even I looked at it, and at this time of year, I think he'd scored 7 goals last season, 11 goals in his first season. He scored 1 this season. I actually thought it was 2, but looking on Transfer Market and Soccer Base, it was they both said 1. So
it was maybe so important to that Dynamo Minsk winner.
Maybe I thought about that. So yeah, it was the Ross County goal. But but then if he's not scoring, he's usually contributing in terms of his link-up play. It's always very clean and crisp, and he's so much finesse and intelligence. Everything seems a wee bit slower, a wee bit more ponderous, and it's allowing opposition to come in and tackle him. Again, he's still contributing within goals. He had a big involvement today with a quick throw-in, so he's still got it, but he just feels just feels like maybe a wee bit kind of yard off, whether it's fatigue. He started every game but one, I think it is. There's just so much reliance on him. We looked last season about his goals, but there's just so much reliance on him just to play. And selling Tagawa, not bringing in a replacement, was a massive mistake. And you look at Vassell, it's like, again, I would love to have Vassell in that Hearts team or in that Hearts squad, because he is the type of guy who can just knock the ball up to, he pins defenders. He is a big physical striker that kind of would take the burden off Shankland, or you just bring him on in different things. So Shankland, people are talking about dropping him, but it's like, okay, who do you play instead?
I think
who do you play instead?
I think that's part of the issue. I think I said this a few weeks ago, where we were at the stage where Shankland probably needs to be dropped, and not. I mean, sometimes it happens to everybody in their career where they just need a week or two at the team or come on as a sub. But back then, same as now, there's nobody else.
Yeah.
There's nobody else you can rely on. I mean, you could maybe go with Vargas or Wilson, but they're not. Putting aside Wilson's age, just the style of players they are. They're not really a sort of lead the line number 9, are they?
No. Soon. And then there's Liam Boyce, but when Liam Boyce has played, he's not really. He's not contributing. He seems to still be kind of getting back up to speed, or he needs game time to do that. But yeah, it's, and you go back to last season when Shankland, if you had that period where he wasn't scoring, and then he didn't go away with Scotland, and he was able to just get a wee break, and for an international break, I think he went away on holiday, and he came back and he was recharged, and he just went on a tear. And it feels like that's kind of what needs to happen. But it goes back to, I've got so much sympathy for Shankland, and yes, again, massive Shankland fan in terms of what he's done at Hearts and what he still can do, and I can understand why fans are frustrated with him. You can kind of feel it and hear it in the crowd, but I think it goes back to recruitment in the summer. We sold Tagawa, didn't bring in a replacement, and you're going into a season where you've got Lauren Shankland, Liam Boyce, who has been plagued by injuries the last couple of years, James Wilson, who is who's still 17, and Kenneth Vargas, who again, it's hard to rely on him. He moves around position, and even there's an argument for him. He needs to be taken out and kind of just given a kind of break, but he can't do that with the number of games coming up and the lack of options. So it's very frustrating.
Just finally, I asked about the schedule. They weren't wanting to use that as an excuse at all. Derek McInnes mentioned it though, said it was maybe a good time to play Hearts. That, I think, maybe, I mean, Hearts players are not going to come out and admit that or say that their footballers are always quick to bat away excuses like that. I think it is. No doubt will have an impact, but the reality is that Hearts just have to deal with that because that's the schedule. Other than an international break that's coming up in the next couple of weeks, it's midweek weekend.
There cannot be any complaints about the schedule, because that is what Hearts played for last season, was to get into Europe, to have these games, to have that demand. We signed loads of players, got a massive squad,
and now we're going to be doing it in February as well.
got a big squad, and struggling to perform, or to rotate, or players to come in and to be effective. Again, there's another one today, was Macaulay Tate. You just look at him, you look at the midfield options with Benny out, he was not even in the squad, and you just look at the makeup of the bench, there surely is a place on there for Macaulay Tate to come on, or even start. And then you just look at there's obviously senior players in there that maybe not having the impact, or maybe not have the long-term future. Hearts, there's a number of things, and it's just very, very frustrating.
Well, on to St Johnstone now, which becomes a much more important game after tonight's result. Please be sure to check out everything at heartstandard.co.uk. We will have previews for that game. We will have more reaction to tonight, and we will be back again to cover the game from Perth on Saturday. Please, if you haven't already, subscribe, share it, tell all your friends. All those things really help us, and we will see you all again soon.